During the 8th anniversary fan meetup live stream that JP Dokkan did, there was a request submitted by a fan/player saying, I want you guys to add a ceiling that would guarantee new characters on their debut banners once hit. Now, these translations are coming from Garesh, but the player or the producer for JP Dokkan said, in response to this request, as a player myself, I completely understand where this person is coming from. We understand that in other titles, certain pity systems exist where it is possible to acquire the newest character on their debut banner after performing a set amount of summons, i.e. a ceiling. In Dokkan, we have the gacha coin system, and we feel that this is sufficient at this time. Therefore, we have no current plans to introduce a ceiling system where players would be able to guarantee a new character on their debut banner. Now, this is a controversial response for sure, as we all know that Dokkan is kind of infamous at this point for not having a pity system, despite being, 8 years in at this point and having the quality of animations and the amount of money they make. You would think that a pity system would be beneficial, but it is kind of tough to say, so we're going to be going ahead and talking about a pity system today, and I am not alone. I am joined by Galeriot. How are you doing today, Gale?
I'm doing fantastic. Hello, everybody. Looking forward to talking about this. This has been a point of discussion, like you said, for quite a while now, actually. I think for the last 2-3 years, we've all been discussing a potential pity system. Because the coin system, while, they seem to think it's fine, is definitely not fine. Let's be real. We've heard of a lot of horror stories, ranging from Truth, Minato recently, right? So it would be nice to finally get a pity system, but clearly, according to them, they don't need it.
As long as the concept of people putting a lot of stones into a banner has been kind of popularized and shown in the public eye with creators like Truth and Minato, it's kind of, the pity system has been talked about, right? Because you do hear about those horror stories, 10,000 stones in between a copy. That's just ridiculous, right? I don't even spend a third of that in a year. All the banners, let alone in between one copy of a unit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, we've also seen a lot of modern day gachas implementing a pity system, right? Obviously, the producer himself said it that, in other titles, certain pity systems exist. Some of them can be 30 multis, some of them are 9 multis, some of them can carry over pities from banner to banner. And with modern gachas doing this sort of pity system, that's also another thing that's come into the light is, seeing these other players playing other gacha games, getting the unit, that they want on the banner itself because they've saved either the amount of, either they've saved the currency for that banner unit, or they've saved or they've spent money for that banner unit, but they can at least get it so they can start using them from launch, from the day of release, right? Whereas, of course, in Dokkan, and obviously some other gacha games are also there that don't do a pity system, you're there just hoping, waiting for that RNG to come in clutch for you to basically actually get the unit you want and be able to use it. And of course, as global players, there's also that added caveat that sometimes some of these units don't come back for 9 months, worldwide download celebration units, case in point, right? So that's also another fact.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, I think, with the global perspective of things, where you think about, with the worldwide units, I think this is a perfect example, right? We talk about a unit like Full Power Frieza or Int Namek Goku, where these guys were kind of at the top of their game when they dropped, right? We could argue UI Goku was better, but that's not the case of point here, right? By the time that Full Power Frieza returns on global, he is already fallen down to the top 10 rather than the top 5. And even on JP, it's not like they just come back initially, right? There's still, it's a 5-month waiting period, but there's a good chance that those units for worldwide are not going to come in and just dominate the red zone, right? Go ahead and take Full Power Frieza into red zone Broly. Let me know how he does, right?
He's not
going to just carry you through it, right?
Trust me, I've tried, because I think it was the it was the Full Extreme Team, right? The Full Extreme Team mission for Broly, right? And I didn't have Ginyu. I didn't have Ginyu, so I had to take in Full Power Frieza for that mission. And trust me, it was horrendous. I had to rely on so much RNG to kind of even get a little bit lucky,
And there's also, we talk about the implications in Dokkan. Let's just say, for example, you bring up the Full Extreme Team mission. Didn't that come around right around the time of Worldwide?
Yep. It was.
Imagine there's a pity system on the Cooler banner, where Cooler's the best Extreme class unit. Given it's 1 out of 10 times he's tanking Broly's super, but it's possible, right? You get this copy of Cooler, or you get to do, you're summoning to pity on Cooler, and you're happy to get copies on the way.
It comes in handy.
All of a sudden, you just Yeah, you have this cooler all of a sudden that has 2 or 3 dupes in him, and he can just beat this red zone content for you.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you don't get cooler on this initial banner, and I'm sure there's a global player watching this that didn't get cooler, and now you know he's coming back on this 8th anniversary banner, but guess what? The 8th anniversary isn't coming to global until July.
Yeah.
It's January as we're recording this. So by the time that this drops, you're going to have, I don't know, 12 other units that are infinitely better than cooler for this content.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's to the point where it doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of frustrating with just kind of the way it works in Dokkan, but you bring up a good point, right? Where it's like new content and stuff like that, especially with global, it does get tricky.
Yep. And I think also just generally as well, not just for global players, but for JP players as well, when you're summoning for these units, because at the end of the day, when it comes to these gacha games, right, you are summoning and you're for the new character. You're not summoning to get a character from like last year. You're not spending the coins on a character. Well, you might want to spend on like say for example Gamma 1 and 2, you know, they haven't come back since October for JP. You can obviously spend your coins on them, but at the end of the day, you're summoning to get the shiny new unit right on the banner more so than anybody else. And if you don't get that unit, you're gonna have to wait for another 4, 5, maybe 6 months potentially to get that unit in the future. But by then already that hype has gone, because another new shiny unit has come out that you want to summon for, right? So it's always that added factor of like, oh, I'm going to summon for this unit, but I'm not gonna get it. I may not get it, I should say. I am not gonna get it is a bit of a harder statement to say, but I may not get this unit, and you might have to wait for 6 months, and then the hype's gone away. And this is obviously one of the points that a lot of global players make when saying like, oh, JP needs to global needs to catch up to JP, but you know, that also applies to if you don't pull the unit whatsoever, you know.
You what's like the most common phrase that someone's gonna say when they're doing multi summons and they don't get what they want, or they get like another unit that's featured on the banner, but it's not the new one, right? Like I feel like anytime I'm doing like a pack opening on a sports game, or I get a unit that's featured on the banner that I don't have done, like you say something along the lines of, okay, I'll take that. Okay, I can use that. I needed that, right?
Yeah.
I would much rather be like, yes, I got the new unit than, okay, I'll take it. Like, that's kind of like the instant.
Yeah, that's you trying to, you know, self-satisfy yourself, basically.
Validate the
yourself,
50 stones to spend. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I would much rather not have to validate what I'm summoning for and just kind of take it as perks along the way while I'm getting to pity.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? Because they're like, yeah, so let's just say for in theory, I don't have the Gammas, poor me, right? I'm definitely going to be summoning on the Majin Buu Saga banner because it's got Gamma 1 on it, right? But Gamma 1 for me isn't going to be that like dopamine of getting the new unit. It's just going to be like, finally, I have a copy of the Gammas.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, for me, a pity system, them saying that they don't need it is kind of you know, a sort of it's a blight against the players basically, because the players are just this is just a disappointing fact for the players primarily, more so than anything else, I would say.
Yeah. I think you said it well, where then just trying to like tell us like, yeah, we don't need this when it's something that the players have been talking about for forever, right? It's like we finally got the update to the friend system, and even then that's still not perfect, but it's tough. I say that maybe with time it could happen, but I just don't know. I mentioned this in a chat that we have, right, where I said Dokkan has a successful formula and they feel that they don't need to change it because, you know, even without this pity system where we think it could increase revenue, they're still, you know, top 1 for the anniversary. Even Vidal's Dokkan Fest got to 6 for crying out loud.
That is true.
They have a successful formula that gets people to spend money, and it still works because global, or not global, but Dokkan players in general are willing to accept what they're telling us, right? With like, we think a pity system is, or no pity system is fine, and there's going to be a wide variety of players that don't even know that this guy said this, let's be real, but also are just okay with it. Like, it's like, okay, we're just gonna roll over and accept it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, right, you know, even though you say the whole factor of like it's a successful IP and stuff, and that is true, of course, they're making money, there's no doubt about it, right? The facts are there though. It's literally written on various websites and stuff, and they're nearly at $4 billion in total revenue, right? But you look at other gacha games, older gacha games that are arguably, you can make a statement and say that they're arguably much more successful. Fate Grand Order, for example, somebody who's at, I think they're like 6 billion revenue total or something like that. They've also introduced a pity recently. Of course, their pity system isn't like a normal pity system either, where it's like, you know, you're guaranteed a unit every 30 multis or something. Effectively, the way their pity system works is, at 30 multis, if you haven't pulled the latest 5-star or the latest new SSR, you will be guaranteed that unit on the 30th multi. But beyond that, you will not get any, you will not be able to pity another 5-star. You will have to get lucky basically. Or if you pull it before the pity, that's your pity used up basically. You won't get an extra guaranteed copy at 30 multis basically. Your pity is done. So the way theirs works is very also finicky, but at least they have some form of like ceiling, like they've said here, right? So I'm surprised Dokkan has never considered that either, because I think we've talked about this in previous videos as well. Even if they guarantee one copy of the new unit in the coin shop or something, I'd maybe say a little bit of a higher price maybe, I think a lot of players would be willing to accept that, you know?
I think personally, if I were designing it, I would say that 500 coins for the new unit would be appropriate, because to me, there is no reason that the 3-year LR Gogeta should cost as much as the 7-year LR Super Saiyan 4s, right?
Yeah,
even with
absolutely.
the EZA, they cost the same exact thing. Yellow coin LR Tech Broly costs the same thing as yellow coin LR Golden Frieza.
That is true.
I get it to base value, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But like you see like the older TURs that they put in sometimes with like the exchange shop, right? Sometimes those are 200, those are 150. You look at the banner unit EZAs like you know, the infamous Thouser in the coin shop during Worldwide.
My God,
right? It's
yeah.
like, oh, your new carnival coins, you could buy Thouser.
Yeah.
He wasn't 400, he wasn't 500 like a TUR would be. He was, granted, you would never spend it, but it was 200, right? So, you know, you go 200 coins, which is feasible. 20 multis, like, you know, 1,000 stones during a big celebration like that, that's feasible, right?
Absolutely.
And then in theory, you could buy Thouser. And then later, Piccolo came out. The STR Piccolo, that's really good.
Oh yeah, he was on Carnival Goku's coin banner, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, he was available in the shop, I think, recently with Carnival coins. So,
No, I think that's also a fair point to make as well, right? For sure. And it would be obviously nice if they just kept it at a base price of 500, but obviously, you know, they want to also make sure that there was a sort of caveat to all of it, because otherwise it would just be very simple for everybody, because we know that players who have been playing the game for a very long time, you know how many coins they have, right? I think at least if they put a hard limit, I think 500 coins would actually also not be bad, as long as there's a hard limit of like 1 copy or 2 copies, because
just one,
yeah, because at the end of the day, I understand where they're coming from. They're, you know, they still want to make sure that their revenue is as high as possible, but you could easily do something what like FGO is doing, where it's only, you're guaranteed that 1 copy, otherwise, you know, just hightail it out of here, we don't care about you.
What if, like, also one thing that you could also think about with Dokkan, right? Like, what if it's you don't want to summon on this banner, but you're, I don't know, 50 coins off of a new being able to buy the unit, right? That's a really, like, if we just want to talk about like a personal anecdote, right now I'm at like 450 yellow coins, but I'm also at like 450 carnival coins, right? So I have to make a conscious choice. Do I want to summon on a carnival banner and kind of run the risk that the carnival unit that I want, like someone like Carnival Goku, will come back and I can just buy him? Or do I just want to go to the yellow coin LR and then buy Golden Frieza? So if you just like, because that's my plan right now, to get Golden Frieza with coins. But yellow coin banners don't really come all around that often. So it's like, would I have to spend those 300 stones to get the coins that I need on some crappy like LR EZA banner just to get the coins? Like, I don't want to do that, right? Like, I want to summon for a new yellow coin LR. And like, so think about it, right? Like, what if someone's like, okay, I'll buy 100 stones to get the 20 coins that I need on this crappy banner that everyone and their mother told me to skip, but hey, I'm 20 off a pity. So let me go ahead and do these 2 multis and go and buy the new unit, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point you're making, and I think that's something I don't know if the Dokkan team considers for some reason, because, I mean, you make a very valid point, is like, when a character comes around that people want tremendously, especially, right? And they're very close to pity, or they're like 5 multis away, 10 multis away, or something like that, and they feel like they can get there either through free-to-play stones and then maybe spending a little bit, or just spending their money because they might have gotten Christmas money, you know, like James from accounting, as we said in the last couple of videos, you know, when we referred to him, he might have gotten a Christmas bonus and he thinks like, oh, you know what, I want to spend on Beast Gohan, or, you know, Power Awakening Piccolo, and I just need, you know, 20 coins to get both of them, or some amount of coins. I'll just spend money to buy a pack. That adds, they can basically get a new set of spending players because of that, you know, because of that fact, because it's obviously, sales come around, you have these various stone packs and stuff like that, right? And Pilaf Strove as well on global and stuff, right? And getting a new player base to basically spend on the game is quite valuable. And it's not to say either that whales wouldn't spend either. I'm 100% sure if the pity system existed, we would have various whales willing to go all the way much more freely compared to maybe hesitating a little bit, before they jump into a banner, right?
We've seen in the past with content creators that we've seen, like, it's just to use another 5ix9ine member, Gresh, if there's a unit he doesn't care about, it's I'm getting one copy and I'm leaving, right? Not everybody is I'm going to summon till pity. So it's like, in case that these summons are going terrible and, he's like 2,000 stones in and for some reason he still doesn't have Videl, it's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to pity and then stopping, right?
Yeah.
But you mentioned a really good point where you said there's a new increase of players that are willing to spend. We've seen the evidence with that with Global's Pilaf Trove, right? And I know a lot of people, the only thing they buy, and Global does this, it's like $8.99. Maybe the price has gone up or down in the future, but there's that little 77 stone pack that you can get every once in a while, right? And it's just for like $8. And that, like, kind of an experimental thing. We don't get that on JP, but that is how you get people to buy stones, right? And maybe, like you said, if it's they got to spend 300 stones to get the pity, and they buy the 90 stone pack 3 times or whatever and get to their pity, and then there you go. That's the extra money for them. So I don't see the world where I don't think there's enough players in this game that affect the bottom line where it's like every single time a new unit comes out, they just have the coins to rainbow them initially and it's done. And even if they did, that supply would run out quickly because if you're not spending stones to get those coins still, eventually that well is going to tap, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a counter argument to that, right? Where it's like, oh, you spend them for the new anniversary units. But like at the same time, it's like, what if, I still feel like it's valid where it's like, you don't, I just don't think there's enough people that can rainbow every new unit when they come out with the coins they have. I just don't, it's 0.0001.
Well, I mean, if we have to look at the stone count, right? I'm pretty sure we only get like 3,000, 3,500 stones at most, across the year. And then maybe let's say you add in, let's say the subscription pack, right? Maybe then you get like 4,000 stones. That's not even enough that's not even 1,000 coins in total. That's like 700, 800 coins at most, right? If my math could be a little bit haywire there, but I'm pretty sure it's around 700 to 800 coins at most there in total, right? That's, I mean, you have, let's say, at the very most, you would ideally save the coins up for the anniversary units and the worldwide download celebration units, right? That amount we have can only give us one of those 4 units. So, or one of those 4 units, assuming we're talking about only Dokkan Fest red coins, right?
Yep.
So, in that regards as well, it's quite limited. So, there is also that positive for Dokkan as well, where it's they're not giving as many stones out if they were to do those pities regularly.
Yeah, it's just such like a mess of things to kind of get at once because you're like there's always going to be a devil's advocate and there's always going to be like something where it's like people that are spending an exuberant amount of money. Like I just don't feel like a pity system would make them stop that much. Yeah,
because the thing is,
as long as it's one copy, right? Like if that's it,
Yeah, because the reason why we are obviously talking about this whole thing, and some of you guys might be wondering why we are actually doing the math and seeing how exactly the pity system should work, is because we need it to be feasible, because we know that clearly they want to make money at the end of the day. That's the agenda of Dokkan. I mean, we spoke about it a bit earlier, but yeah. So this has to be a feasible mechanic where we win, they win, everybody wins, kind of thing, right? It has to be designed in that way. And honestly, I do believe like the best way to probably do it is probably like a 500 coin sort of thing with a hard limit or something like that. Because anyways, free-to-play players don't get that many coins throughout the year to be able to recurringly buy a new, pity a new unit, right? At most you might get 2 new units throughout the year, right? So yeah, it is very interesting for sure. And I am still a little bit surprised that they were so, they literally just said, because for the other questions in the live stream, right, they were giving very much non-answers. They were like, oh, we're considering it, or we might do this, we're looking into it, and all that jazz. We're looking into your feedback and stuff. This is the one thing they were just like, we're not considering it at all. Like they literally just said it straight up, which was kind of weird to be quite honest.
Yes. So I just want to give you a quick example of what you're talking about, just so we kind of put like there's evidence to your claim, right?
Yeah.
The first question that they are answered from the player base, and given these were the 50 World Tournament finishers, right? Like the top 50.
Yeah.
These were
50.
as on the JP Dokkan grind for the top of the World Tournament. Multiple people play on the account. Like if you sleep, you're not getting top 1. If you play by yourself.
Yeah. And this is JP as well. Yeah.
These are the dedicated players, right? These are not just. This isn't James from accounting, right? I always love bringing him up. So here's the question. Why is the Ultimate Red Zone limited to only 3 attempts per day? After pulling new characters, I really want to test out their abilities, but these limitations act as a bottleneck. I want you to implement high difficulty events that don't have these kind of restrictions. And we have seen that, like this isn't part of the question, but we've seen that with like the Heroes Red Zone because it goes away, we had unlimited attempts, right?
Yep.
And the answer that the producer gave was about similar length, but it left a lot more open dialogue. It seems as though a lot of people feel similarly to the person who submitted this question. However, we are currently considering the removal of these restrictions from a general standpoint. On the other hand, we are considering what?
You said we are currently. It's there.
Oh, we are not.
We are
currently.
not.
I'm sorry, the arrow messed me up. But we are not currently considering the removal of these restrictions from a general standpoint. On the other hand, we are considering relaxing these restrictions a bit during special campaigns, such as the anniversary. I'll be sure to discuss this with the rest of the development team. Now, granted, he did say we are not currently considering, but at the same time, he also left it with, I'll be sure to discuss this with the rest of the development team. Where with the answer to the coin system, or the pity system, it was, we have coins, have fun, right?
Yeah, basically.
So, yeah, just to kind of give backup to what Gale said, my stutter included, we did have more open dialogue with like red zone stuff. And we've already seen that with the red ribbon red zone. It's 5 attempts rather than 3. And granted, that I don't think that's the perfect happy medium, but we do have, we're trying to find a common ground. Maybe, what if it's 10 attempts a day, right? Like 10 attempts, how many times do you really want to play the red zone, right? Like, unless you're doing it for, if you want to do it for a video on your YouTube for consecration, I get that. But just from personal experience, the Cell Max missions, like I tried doing with the Ginyu Force like 30 times in a day, and I was ready to lose my mind because I couldn't beat it, right? So it's not like I'm sitting here having a super fun time playing an event 30 times over and over again. So it's like, if we do find a common ground, I think like 10 times a day is fine, but that's not the discussion point of this video. I just want to kind of give you an idea of what some of the answers to the other questions were, right?
Yeah.
That the coin system was like, no, this is not happening, get over it. Where this one is like, I'll discuss it with the development team. So kind of the last question we had with the outline that you and I did for this video was, is it a necessity? And I am tempted to say that it's not a necessity, but the quality of life in this game would vastly improve with one, because you talked about it earlier, right? Where how does everybody win, right? Where because in a format like this, where it's at the end of the day, it's predatory, right? It's hard to be the prey and win at the same time, and
the house always wins, as they say.
Right, and I've come very close to like, so 6th anniversary UI Goku. This is when I was able to do so. I can't really do it anymore because college, but I bought out all the sales for UI Goku on the 6-year UI Goku banner, right? I had probably 2,000 stones on the initial night, and I didn't get them, right? That's as close as I've been to quitting the game, where I'm just like, okay, this is just not worth it. I can't do this anymore. And I continued to keep going and eventually got him, but it didn't feel very good because I had to go past the sale stones, which is like something I never do. And I'm there's no way I'm the only person that goes through that, right? And there's a lot of people that, like, even our own Sunblade at one point was like, I'm not playing this game until a proper pity system is evolved or is like implemented, right? And I guarantee you, he's not the only person that thinks like that. Like, there's probably somebody that, you know, did do something similar like what Minato did, where it was like 3K stones for Piccolo, and it happened more than once. And he's like, all right, I'm spending an ungodly amount of money on this game, and I can't do it anymore. And a pity system, if he were to get the units because he just had to go to pity, maybe said individual would still be playing the game because he might not have won, but the game pitied him, right? Like, it was like, okay, you could have this, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, I believe for them probably it's not a necessity, but I think from a player standpoint it definitely is at this point. And especially when you see, again, like what I said earlier on as well at the start of this video with you know, referring to other gacha games, you know, you see games like, for example, Genshin, you see games like Danmachi, Memoria Freeze, you see games like FGO. You see all these games, modern games adding pity systems, older games adding pity systems, and being able to, and the big thing about these gacha games, right, the way they drag you in is this concept. It's not the gameplay loop. Let's be real. It ain't the gameplay loop. Nobody really focuses too much on the gameplay loop. It's being able to use the characters that you like the most, right? And when you can't pull the character you like the most, and you have to wait for 4, 5, maybe 6 months for you to be able to use this when the hype has died down and everybody's talking about the other new shiny unit that's just come out, and you're stuck on a unit that's, 6 months old, it can feel a little bit bad. It can feel really disheartening for sure. And obviously, like you said, in regards to Sunblade and various others, it doesn't feel good, and it can affect your experience of the game itself, which is obviously a negative for everybody, because you may leave the game, they lose a customer potentially if you were spending on the game, stuff like that. So that is also another factor to consider.
You sometimes, with like good friends that end up leaving the game, you lose a point of conversation if they quit the game too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they don't want to hear anything about Dokkan anymore. They're done, right? Like, how am I supposed to talk to you about something else if it's not Dokkan? Maybe that's the only reason we were friends in the first place, right?
Exactly. And, so yeah.
You also mentioned, like, let's just go to the extreme example with the worldwide, right? Like you said, 6 to 7 months. How about 11? A whole year. Like with the worldwide units, right? It's a whole year.
Yeah,
11 months is basically a year. Like in the terms of Dokkan, right? And like a year in Dokkan is UI Goku went from being like a must run on any team that he's on to like dead, right? Like, AGL UI Goku, and it happened almost overnight, right? Like the 7-year LRs came out and he was just like, okay, he's irrelevant now. Okay, whatever, have fun.
Yeah, especially once the red zone came and everything, it was
just
like, okay,
came, right? Yeah, then it was like,
and it was like, all right, then, well, goodbye. It's that Andy Toy Story meme of like, I don't want to play with you anymore, basically, kind of vibe, effectively. So yeah, no, I definitely get that as well. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's just like the word of it being a necessity is where things get tricky to me, because we've talked about it, right? All Dokkan has to do is tell you, we got 6th on the grossing charts with Videl, and we have a winning formula. We're making billions of dollars, and we don't have a pity system. We don't need to change this. And I would almost say to play devil's advocate to that, I think it's almost possible you would be making more money if you just implemented this little thing. And if you maybe you trial run it, right? Try it on a banner where people aren't as hyped to summon, and see if the revenue goes up. And if it's not, then don't permanently implement it, right? We've seen them experiment with things before, right? Like it almost.
The Carnival banner is an example. They tried doing that whole thing with the worldwide download celebration of like one Dokkan Fest, one Carnival banner and stuff. But they obviously, and now obviously with the anniversary, they decided to revert back to the old system. Clearly with the dual Dokkan Fest in the part 1, and then part 2, who knows? It might be a Carnival banner, but yeah, they've reverted back to the system. So they're not avert to testing stuff.
And I think even like the whole idea with the Carnival thing wasn't even that bad, because with the Carnival Goku, you had people summoning on a unit that in theory would have been on the top legendary summon banner.
Yeah, exactly.
It giving in essence 4 banners to summon on instead of 3 in theory would make them more money, right? Like, and who's to say what they do? Because we already know it's a dual Dokkan Fest, but is part 2 going to be top legendary, or is it going to be a Carnival, a dual Carnival? We don't know yet. There's just so much that goes into this discussion, and it's like this video isn't like the be all end all discussion to it. So there's really no way this discussion is ever going to stop, in my opinion. But who knows?
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
I think I've exhausted the well of things to talk about with the pity system. What do you think, Gail?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered all our bases and our ground. I think obviously we want to see what you guys have to say down below, because I know the community for the most part is in line with what we've been saying in terms of like there is obviously a need for it, especially because of other gacha games and everything with that. But we want to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments as well, for sure.
Yes, please let us know. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I know this was a longer form video, about 30 minutes, but don't forget to leave a like if you did enjoy, and subscribe here to the 5-9 Mobile channel so you don't miss out on any discussions like this or any other things Dokkan and Legends. But that's all we got for you today. Have a great day, everybody. Signing out.